Morocco, and it's an honor and a huge pleasure to address such distinguished audience. So my name is Rahmoun Fatima Zora, and I am a member of the PPP unit of the Ministry of Economy and Finance in Morocco. I'm also a WAPPP member, an executive member, and responsible of Women chapter. And today I'm very happy and very pleased to be using my public official hat with WAPPP and to represent the PPP unit of the government of Morocco in this second WAPPP Annual Congress. So before I start, I want to thank WAPPP's team for this amazing virtual opportunity for PPP experts and practitioners from the public and the private sectors to gather for 5 whole days and to share their experience, lessons, recommendations, and solutions for a better profession, for a better quality infrastructure to improve our lives on this planet. And I hope that by the end of these 5 days, we hopefully be a bit wiser on climate change and resilience. Okay, I can't move the slides. Okay. So to begin, public-private partnership is important because it is an economic, it is a social, and it is a financial development tool to build resilient infrastructure capable of coping with unexpected external shocks. I've divided my presentation, as you can see, in 3 parts: the climate awareness and actions, an overview of the legal and institutional environment for PPPs, and project pipelines. So geographically, Morocco is 711 kilometers areas with 3,500 kilometer coastline. We're almost 37 million with 117 billion GDP. We are a strategic location in North Africa. We are also a gateway to Africa. We have an advanced status with Europe. Morocco has a stable and dynamic economy, and also a magnet for FDI. So for climate awareness and actions in Morocco, there is a new wave of climate leadership coming from the African continent. And climate awareness is a strategic orientation in Morocco. So the policy initiated by His Majesty King Mohammed VI in favor of climate and sustainable development is a commitment that was at the heart of the Marrakesh COP27 in 2016, where His Majesty stated that Morocco is among the first countries to announce their intended nationally determined contributions. It has taken concrete steps to ensure that 52% of the national energy supply comes from clean sources by the year of 2030, and that we have proposed a set of initiatives as a part of implementing the Paris Agreement, especially with respect to adaptation and financing. These include the initiative for the adaptation of African agriculture, the 3As. Last year, also in Glasgow, COP26, His Majesty urges collective commitment to save humanity. So the King, Mohammed VI, called for an awakening of the global conscience to save humanity from the great threats of climate change. His Majesty underlined the urgency of a real political And mankind has but one of 2 choices: either surrounded to self-destruction, apathy, or engage honestly in a set of practical measures. And his speech was also concluded by the urging of global community to activate tangible solutions to change the worrying path toward which the world is heading. So what actions Morocco is taking to address climate change? So Morocco has shown a strong commitment to fight climate change through proactive policy that enshrines the choice of sustainable development. For example, to implement a green and inclusive economy by 2030, Morocco has pledged to considerably upgrade its efficient energy by 52%, 20% using solar energy, 20% wind, and 12% hydro. It's the first Arab country to put forward its plan to transition its economy from fossil fuels to renewable energy. In the concept also of green cities, Morocco is currently developing Africa, Ben Gurier. It also possesses a powerful legal framework designed to support the implementation of its climate ambitions. It includes, for example, the laws related to water, to renewable energy, to energy efficiency. It has also implemented a number of ambitious sustainability projects, including solar and wind power plants, desalination plants. It has also put in place different programs in agriculture, water resources, and irrigation, which have the aim of using its resources in a sustainable manner, attracting by that private financing and developing specific public-private partnership models to improve the performance, the maintenance, and the operation. We also have the new development model of Morocco, where the Commission has stated to use public-private partnership in many sectors, such as in water, for example. We need to control the cost of energy and using suitable pricing that makes the best use of resource. And this niche can be attractive for private investment and for PPPs. In the educational sector, the funding of institutions offering specialized training courses will involve other forms of financing than those from the states. And here comes also the PPPs. For the investments, we need to put in place favorable conditions for increasing national and international private investment through an attractive investment framework. And also in the health sector, we need to increase the supply of healthcare. That also requires strengthening public hospitals and encouraging PPPs. In the COVID pandemic, it has revealed that public hospitals have a critical role to play in the healthcare ecosystem. So the Commission also advocates that promoting PPP when it is useful, for example, for sharing technical platforms. So now let's move to the legal and institutional environment for PPPs in Morocco. So Morocco has a long tradition of PPPs. It was enacted in 2006 by the law 5405 regarding delegated management of public services and infrastructure, implemented by local authorities or public enterprises, but does not apply to PPPs with line ministries. Later, we had the legal framework that was completed by to the particularly the PPP law sets rules, guidelines, and procedures that govern the PPP procurement. This slide here highlights some key features in the PPP law that may be of interest for potential private parties, practitioners, or contracted authorities. So as you can see, the first thing is the pre-assessment study, or what we call in French, évaluation préalable, which is a mandatory study within the PPP process. And it is a detailed assessment of the potential for a PPP to deliver improved value for money compared to other conventional procurements, without forgetting the innovation of the private party, respecting the deadline and the budget. PPP law also brought a number of innovative provisions such as the adequate risk sharing. So we know that risks are supported by the party deemed best capable of bearing them. We have also included the competitive dialogue, which is a new aspect in Morocco. It allows the public authority, in case of particular complexity of the project, to seek the expertise and innovation capacity of the private sector to help them reach the best solution for the projects. By the way, I'll be sharing with you a project that we just started, and we are going to use competitive dialogue for the first time. We have also step-in rights for the investors. We have compensation for non-compliance with contract terms and default interest, and more other features. While the government of Morocco had made progress in building a strong legal and institutional framework for PPPs, the momentum of the PPP process has remained below expectations. However, several projects under delegated management, concessions, and even sectoral laws are ongoing. So the use of the PPP law has been particularly slow due to the following shortcomings. So the scope of application does not include all the public entities. The PPP initiative is fully supported at the political level due to the absence of a body who can have a PPP national program. The pre-assessment study has limited the use of PPP contracts. There is a lack of understanding of the negotiated procedure and also of the unsolicited proposals. And there are also difficulties in interpreting sectoral laws that we use to do PPPs and that's governing PPPs. So the amendment of the new law, so we had to extend the scope of application to local authorities, their syndicates and their affiliated bodies. So we also need to set up a national public-private partnership commission responsible to set a national program. For the pre-assessment study, we are talking about the investment threshold below which the preliminary assessment is optional for some PPP projects. And this also is responsibility of the National Commission. We simplified the unsolicited proposal process and we made some clarification and the condition of using the negotiation procedure. And we tried to align the provision of the PPP law with those of sectoral laws for some provisions to be followed. For the institutional framework of PPP contracts in Morocco, we can say that the new legal framework established different governing bodies. So the first one is the National Commission for Public-Private Partnership. It is shared by the head of government and which members are line ministries. This commission is entrusted with the strategic missions, particularly in terms of PPP policy and the prioritization of PPP projects through defining what we call the annual or multi-year national program of projects. We have also the standing committee, which has the same role as the PPP commission, but this one is for the local authorities and their syndicate, intercommunal cooperation institution with the scope of local authorities. So after those two at the high level bodies, we have the Ministerial Committee for PPPs, which is created under the Ministry of Finance. This committee evaluates the pre-assessment report submitted by the public authority in order to assess the opportunity to realize the project through PPP. The public authority submits the pre-assessment study to the Minister of Finance, and he is entitled to decide whether to apply the PPP procedure or not. We have also the steering committee or the monitoring committee within the public authority. So after the approval to go with the PPP projects, the public authority in charge of PPP projects needs to establish a steering committee for the project. The committee is in charge of supervising the procurement procedure and assessing any irregularity or defect in that procedure. We have also a national commission for, we have also National Commission for Public Procurement, which is attached to the Government Secretary General, and it has a standing committee in charge of PPP and delegated management that investigate and decide on stakeholders' complaints as well as on other submitted assessment on this type of contracts. And then we have the PPP division, or what we call the PPP unit of Morocco, which is a central PPP advisory unit that develops PPP policy, that provides guidance. This division is a dedicated task force which plays a role in supporting PPP projects. It's not in 1990s. So the first PPP, or the first Moroccan PPP arrangement, was signed as a BOT contract to establish a power plant in Jaffa. During the same period, the management of drinking water and electricity distribution, as well as sewage treatment for the greater Casablanca, was dedicated to a private company. This was followed by same concessions in Rabat, Tangier, Tétouan, along with various others, such as, for example, the Gardan project in the irrigation. Many other projects have been awarded in Morocco or are currently in operation. However, this track records relates to concession-based projects under the concession law, and the effects and benefits of a well-designed PPP initiative remain to be seen. So in the main sectors in the pipeline of PPP projects, so we have in the transport sector 7 projects in port and 1 project in the business aviation airport. We have 2 projects in the irrigation, we have 2 in water and sanitation, and you can see after in my presentation that some of the projects go for irrigation and water and sanitation. We have in the industry the production of serums, vaccines, and biological products. We have some also desalination plant and wastewater reuse plant in the energy and power. And we also have nursery projects and holiday camp centers within youth and sports sector. So these projects are still to be redefined by the commission and check if they are still be on the pipeline, except for those who are already either on the evaluation process, on the construction process, or the operational process. So for water and energy, in 2016, Morocco suffered from the worst drought in 30 years. Downward trend to the volume of water resources varying between 7.6 and 40.6%. The effects of climate change are becoming more evident in Morocco, so important reduction of capital water year per capita. That must lead to a situation of water shortage between horizon 2030 and 2050. There is an increase on demand in water, especially for irrigation. There is a worsening of overexploitation. So the new model of development emphasizes the importance of better use of water resources and developing the use of unconventional water resources. Uh, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery, Rural Development, Water and Fish and Forest and the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water, ONI. Abengoa signed the contract. Abengoa is the private partner. It's a Spanish multinational company that applies innovative technology solution for sustainability in the infrastructure, energy, and water sector. The PPP model is design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. In operational terms, it's for 30 years. The cost is around 309 million euro, and it's been operational since the beginning of the year. I think it's the beginning of March. This project, so Abengoa has signed contract to develop the desalination and irrigation project. And this project involves the construction of a desalination plant with 275,000 meter cubic total production capacity of desalinated water per day, which will be the largest plant designed for drinking water and irrigation. The contract also provides for the possible capacity expansion to up to 450,000. The first one requires a 50% expansion of production capacity under the contract that Abengoa has already been developing for UNI. And the second one calls for the additional production of 125,000. This public-private partnership project will help secure the irrigation of 15,000 hectares in the Shtuka Plain through the irrigation network that involves 5 pumping stations, reservoirs, main pipeline of 18.4 kilometers, and a distribution network of 480 kilometers. As I stated in the beginning, so this is a mutualization project. The impact of this mutualization on capacity was the change in capacity from the start for both the ministry and the ONI. The cost also, that was 1.3 billion dirhams for drinking water production instead of 1.9 billion dirhams in the beginning. And also for the tariff, a substantial reduction in the tariffs of meter cubic of water for irrigation that is 10.4 to around 5 dirhams, and a drinking water tariff estimated at 9 instead of 10. So the project will contribute to development of the main economic drivers, the agricultural and tourism sectors, and the conservation of the aquifers in the area, so therefore preventing their overexploitation. So the second project is an ongoing construction project for Dakhla desalination plant. The public authority is the Ministry of Agriculture. The private partner is Nareva Renewable and International Power. The model is 2 types of contracts. It's a mix of the PPP that would finance, design, construct, operate, and maintain, and the delegated management contract for the public service of the irrigation network. It's for 22 years. It costs around 190 million euros. It's under construction. It's a seawater desalination plant to irrigate 5,000 hectares of crops. The Department of Agriculture signed through a competitive bidding process the public contribution financing agreement and 2 partnership contracts. The first is with the company Dawek SA for the co-financing, design, construction, and operation of the desalination unit. And the second is with Trisma for the co-financing, design, construction, and operation of the irrigation system. The project is a part of the development strategy of the southern provinces and responds to the guideline of His Majesty King Mohammed VI regarding the importance of creating wealth in the region of Dakhla wa Dahab. So the third project is also an ongoing procurement. It's a seawater desalination project in Casablanca's Stat region. The public authority is the Moroccan Agency of Sustainable Energy and the National Office of Electricity and Water. The private partner is not yet. It's also a design, finance, build, and operate. The costs, it's production at lower cost, and it is at this stage of the competitive dialogue. So ONI has issued a pre-qualification, to select a short list of candidates, so companies or group of companies, deemed to be technically and financially capable of carrying out the seawater desalination project in the Casablanca Stat region. So the candidates will be invited to present their best technical and financial offer to ensure the lowest possible cost per meter cubic, without resources to state subsidies, and with the project being supplied essentially by renewable energy. I also wanted to share with you the concentrated solar power project Noor, which was one of the first and success story of this kind of project. So the Moroccan government was represented in this framework by Mazen. The construction, operation, and maintenance have been awarded to the consortium led by the company Aqua Power. International financial institutions was there, the AFDB, the World Bank, the IBRD, and EIB. They provided grants and loans to finance the projects. Two 25-year power purchase agreements. So the first allows Mazen to purchase electricity from the project company at the production price, and the second requires ONI to purchase all of Mazen's electricity at the grid price. So thus the Moroccan government finances the price difference between these two PPAs through subsidies, in addition to guarantees issued to project lenders. So this arrangement allows for greater control and active participation of Mazen in the production of the service alongside the private partner. The Ouarzazate concentrated solar power project is a solar complex with a total capacity of 580 megawatt divided into 4 plants. And this complex is the first project developed under the energy strategy of Morocco. And the first phase of this program was launched in 2009 and consisted of setting up 160 megawatt power plant under the PPP model. Some of the main key factors for the success of this project is the appropriate risk location. The private party bears the construction and operating risk, while the Moroccan government bears the market risk. Also, the government participation by providing guarantees. So the government participates with an estimated amount per year to cover the expected difference between the prices at which Mazen will buy the electricity from the producer and the price of its resale on the grid. And also a strong private consortium. So the tender, as I stated, was won by the consortium led by the International Company of Water and Power. The project implemented was very satisfactory as the project's outcome and output indicators were all met or even exceeded. The way to go forward. In addition to the implementation of the legal framework at a practical level, the government will adopt a program-based approach to PPP projects to reinforce a strong fiscal management system in the context of an evolving investment program. And the National Commission of PPP will review the proposals submitted by different ministerial departments to set up a pipeline and validate projects that meet policy prioritization criteria to optimize and allocate social benefits across investments. Also, besides, we have the Mohammed VI Investment Fund, recently created. It's an investment fund whose main role is to participate in the financing of the projects in general. But this fund will also participate in key investment within the framework of PPP through not only existing financing instruments, but also through the creation and the establishment of sector-based and theme-based sub-funds. Communication. So PPP requires training. It requires awareness raising and dissemination efforts vis-a-vis the region, but also public institutions and ministries. So PPPs are sufficiently complex to merit not only temporary dissemination actions, but also a proper capacity building and training program for local authorities who will have to evaluate and manage the PPP projects. So one way to accomplish this is country experience sharing among public authorities. So Morocco is successfully, for example, implementing transport and energy PPP projects. So in order to succeed in its program, the skills acquired in the Ministry of Transport and Ministry of Energy have to be made available outside those ministries and shared with other sectors. So to conclude, so climate finance can be mobilized through a range of instruments such as promoting PPPs. A range of examples provide insights into potential of PPPs in climate finance. And as I just stated, the Moroccan words that solar power illustrate how PPPs can serve effective renewable energy project development and their public leadership. Also, the environment, natural resources, and biodiversity are under strong pressure as a result of climate change, but also due to public policy and sector-based strategies that do not give due regard to the needs of sources, sustainability, environmental balance. So Morocco will have to take challenges and catch up, fueled by significant progress in areas marked by major deficits such as quality education, participation of women in water conservation. So the environment, natural resources are strong pressure as a result of climate change, and one of them is building a sustainable Morocco where resources are preserved in all regions. So the challenge of sustainability enshrines the collective responsibility towards natural capital and climate as common goods and towards future generations. Thank you very much. I think I'm still having like 10 minutes for questions. So I have a question from Jean-Christophe.
Yes.
Hi, Jean-Christophe.
And I come in. I'm happy to give it to you in live. So Morocco, we know, is very experienced and has a very dynamic PPP market. But how do you rate the acceptance of public-private partnerships in the civil society?
So we do, as you said, so we do have a great experience in PPPs. But still, people think that PPP, it's kind of privatization. It's kind of like we're going to lose what we used to do. So especially most of the people are used to do public procurement, and public procurement, it's not as complex as PPPs. And that's something that we witnessed in the first part of the PPP law in 2015, when we had to amend it in order to make it more clear for people to interpret what we mean by PPPs, what is the global mission, and to make them realize that this doesn't mean that we are selling the infrastructure. This is just mean that we are looking for the innovation of the private sector and for the financing of the private sector. And at the end, it's the public sector who's going to pay the private sector. So did I respond to your question?
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's always the question, how sometimes there is criticisms. Why do we have public-private partnerships in the first place? But obviously,
yes,
if it's well explained, you can actually
but I mean, in Morocco, but JC, in Morocco, so we are counting on the National Commission of PPPs to make it clear for all the political bodies and for the line ministries that we need to have a program of PPP projects that's coming from the top level. Because at the technical level, everyone knows what is PPPs, but at the top level, we need to be willing to give 5, 10 PPP projects to the pipeline to see if they are going through PPPs or not. Of course, this is all go through the process of PPP with the evaluation, with the pre-assessment and all this.
Yes, and we know that PPPs bring this complexity.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes.
Okay, JC, I have another question from Nicola, What does Morocco consider in choosing between traditional procurement and PPPs when developing infrastructure projects? Within the PPP law, we have what we call the pre-assessment study, the évaluation préalable. So it has like a lot of aspects, and one of them is a comparison between a public sector comparator and PPPs on all levels, and all the like the design, the financing, the maintenance, and the risks, and through the value for money. And we check which one is the best way to do the project. It's the one with less value for money. So we compare both of them. But as PPP is something new in Morocco, so even the public sector comparator, we don't have this, like, we need to have a reference of projects. So we are working on having a reference of projects in order to make this comparison worth. But we are using the way how we do traditional projects to compare it to PPPs within the evaluation project.
Anyone with questions? Now is the time to query. It's not that often that you have the opportunity to ask somebody from the Moroccan PPP unit about their project pipeline. Maybe Fatima Zora, you could explain to us how large we have to imagine the operations of the PPP unit of Morocco.
What do you mean by the operation of PPP?
Like how are you organized?
As
How
a
many
PPP
people?
unit. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think in 2010 we established a PPP unit. We were like 5 people, and now we are almost like a division with 3. I can say 3 head of units that go with the. We work as a life cycle of the project. So the first unit is for the identification of the project, supporting the project at the first stage, and then the second one is evaluation of the project, still the procurement, and then we have the monitoring of the projects. But in any case, so all what we do, as I explained in my presentation, is that we support, we give advice, and we don't take the place of the public authorities or the place of the consultants. However, we are the secretariat of the ministerial committee, which evaluate the pre-assessment study. So all the evaluation reports, they end up being in this division for evaluation and opinions. And also, once the commission, the National Commission of PPP will be established, will also play the role of the secretariat of that commission.
So Lucila Spotorno has asked this question.
Well, it's the same as the question before, but I mean, to consider if PPP is successful or not. So I think the committee that evaluates pre-assessment study has evaluated only 3 so far. 1 was not awarded as a PPP. 1 is still on the preparation phase because of the COVID. Everything had to stop. The 2 others, 1 is the construction, and 1 is still on the dialogue, competitive dialogue procedures. So I don't think that we are able now to like give the right like answer to if it is successful or not, because I mean the impact's still not seen yet. So maybe in 5 years from now we can answer this question.
And Fatima, our good friend Eric Veil, the chair of the port chapter, is also asking.
Hi, Eric.
I'll just display this here. It's a long question in 2 parts. So your presentation included a pipeline of 7 port projects. Climate change and extreme events have direct and indirect impacts on seaport infrastructure, operations, and services. Against this background, would you happen to know And then comes the second part, just a second, whether the Morocco PPP unit is embedding climate adaptation considerations. I see we lose Fatima Zora. She has a connection difficulty, but she'll be back in a second. Yes.
I'm
So
here.
whether the Morocco PPP unit is embedding climate adaptation considerations into the various technical, financial, economic, and environmental analysis conducted to best design and deliver PPPs in ports.
I think that the port sector, as the airport sector, as the rail sector in Morocco, they've been doing concessions and PPPs since the 90s. So I think the adaptation consideration and technical, financial, economic, and environmental analysis are already put in their way how to do PPPs. So for the projects that will go through the PPP law, it is something that we're gonna, of course, try to put all these criteria on. But they used to do PPPs, and they have successful experience and ports and feasibility studies that they used to do regarding their sectoral law, as I explained. So they have their own law to do PPPs and to do concessions. And yes, I think that they embedded all the adaptation and climate, and they have to embed it, climate change now, because um, even if I presented like the pipeline of the projects, most of these public entities stated that it will be very difficult for them to go through these projects in the years to come. So we need to wait for 2-3 years to see exactly what is the situation in order to launch some of these projects.
Fatima Zora, we're coming to the end of our time together. I would like to express our deep gratitude to the Moroccan PPP unit for having allowed to display and present all their plans and projects. Big appreciation from WAPPP for that. And thank you so much for having shared that time with us today.
Thank you so much, JC. And I want to see all of you Friday because I have a session on women. And as the chair of the Women in PPP at WAPPP, so I'm welcoming you to that session at 1 o'clock on Friday. And thank you so much for being here or for listening to this presentation.